Hi, so I'm Denise Baum. I'm running for House District 47, House of Representatives for the state of Montana. So why I'm running?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been a law enforcement officer in the city of Billings for 19 years. What kind of spurred me to run? A number of reasons, going back as far as 2017. That was one of the first years that we had massive, just completely destructive cuts to Department of Public Health and Human Services. I primarily investigate crimes against children. I'm a child forensic interviewer, and those cuts displaced our child advocacy center. We had one building that served multiple services, mental health services, counseling services. It was a place where CPS could do their supervised parent supervision meetings with parents that were under their protection plans or family plans. That was where we interviewed children. It was a one-stop, multifaceted facility, and the cuts in 2017 displaced us. We finally landed with Riverstone Health, thankfully. But when you talk about we need mental health services, we need addiction services, we need counseling services, you also have to talk access. And we had the best thing. If it's all in one place and it's accessible, hello, we lost that. Now they're all scattered across the city again. So when you talk about not only providing the services, you have to have capacity and you have to be able to have it accessible to people. So that kind of started me on the road thinking, okay, this has got to change. This can't continue. Then in this last session, 2021 session, there were a number of bills regarding how child sexual abuse is investigated, particularly on the forensic interview side, that there's no institutional knowledge. Same thing with some public safety measures as far as changing definition of obstructing. I believe I can bring institutional knowledge and boots on the ground knowledge of how this system works and do some better legislation that protects and the kiddos. It would be nice if we could see a repeal of House Bill 259, which took away the inclusionary rule zoning, which allowed local governments to ensure that new housing projects had a certain percentage of affordable rental homes or homes that could be purchased. So that took an essential toolbox out of our toolkit to ensure that those affordable housing would occur. I know for Bozeman, it resulted in the loss of about 70 units once that went in effect, and I struggle with that. The sponsor of the bill owns a construction company. And then to add insult to injury, that same sponsor of the bill was put on Governor Giaforte's Affordable Housing Task Force, which just actually issued some recommendations, one of which was accessory unit dwelling. So, and I there's a bunch of pros and cons with that, but when I think of accessory unit dwellings, that's another separate, it could be detached or attached to a primary residence. So I think more of it as like what they call the mother-in-law suite. So how is it going to benefit someone that is completely doesn't have housing? So is this for rental to family members? So you're really not helping with the issue of affordable housing. Obviously, opposing any legislation which would target these individuals. And not only that, doing outreach. So when I was looking at this question, I'm like, okay, I don't have much knowledge on it. Let's talk to the people that would be affected. And I got some really good feedback, which they were also appreciative of. Simple things that can be done when they're talking about dress codes. You have male and female dress codes and things that I would have never even thought of. And they're like, gender neutral workplace dress codes. Okay, that's easy. The whole issue with, with the bathrooms and all that stuff, they're like, dude, just make it unisex. I'm like, okay, yeah. Don't designate them, like, easy, right? Things that make people feel more inclusive versus outside of the norm, or that they're so different that there has to be all these special legislations or rules. Just, if you make it very neutral, you make it inclusive, and everybody's feel that they're being treated the same. Think of solar energy, net metering, okay? Montana has one of the lowest net metering protocols nationwide. It's set at an arbitrary 50 kilowatts of power. So when you look at, and there's actually, what's weird is there's actually state legislation specific only to Northwestern Energy customers. Now, when you look at other co-ops, it doesn't affect them. They can set their own rates, but Northwestern Energy, the same company that we're having issues with as far as the power plant on the Yellowstone River, which continues to be built without all the permits and everything having been done, with still huge public outcry, which county commissioners and everyone else just went and ignored us. So changing that, so with the net metering, so at 50 kilowatts, if you put more energy back onto the grid beyond that, you don't get the credit for it. We also don't allow for aggregated net metering, meaning if you have more than 1 meter, so say you have an external shop or something like that, you can't aggregate the money, or excuse me, the energy you put back onto the grid for both meters. And that also affects ranchers and farmers that want to use a wide conglomerate of meters to put energy back on the grid and get the credits. That needs to change. I think I can speak fairly efficiently to public safety, having been a law enforcement officer for the city of Billings for 19 years. There's been a lot of change. Unfortunately, a lot of our current crime deals with untreated mental health issues, homelessness, and drug addictions. So what we have seen is we just saw with the continuum of care, the step up with community partners, and that's what's needed. So it's going to address some of the homeless issues, mental health issues, addiction issues. Okay. Unfortunately, Montana Rescue Mission is got part of that funding, but I wish they would have come to the table a little bit sooner to be more expansive. So with the continuum of care, the community partners, they're going to be able to provide for low barrier shelter for the winter. What's low barrier? That means that there's no restrictions like with Montana Rescue Mission. If you had been drinking or under the influence of any type of drugs, they won't allow you in. The low barrier ones will still allow for it, give them a safe place, but is also going to put them on a path to treatment. It's going to hook them up with mental health personnel, also with drug treatment, and actually log and track that success or additional resources that they need. Well, again, opposing any legislation that is going to restrict someone's rights or freedoms. Absolutely uphold our state constitution, which is our right to privacy. These issues surrounding reproductive care, access to contraceptives, all those things are very personal issues. And there's no one ideology that is going to speak to all situations. And nor should government be speaking to those situations. Like they say, you need to walk in someone else's shoes. You can't understand all the other complexities that go into these very difficult decisions, how these situations came about. Education levels the playing field and allow people access to medical information regarding their reproductive rights, contraceptives, and education within the schools, saying, in very medical dialogue of this is life, this is reproductive life, etc., informs people and helps them make the best choices. A journalist. I actually started my college career as a print journalism major with a poli-sci minor, and started taking a lot of criminal justice classes, and writing, police work all kind of came together, but I used to dream of working for the Washington Post. Love it. Irrational. There's no irrational fears. Gosh.
True.
The only thing that comes to mind is pretty healthy fear of heights, which when I started interviewing for law enforcement positions, one of them was a consortium testing type thing, and growing up in Wisconsin, lived along Lake Michigan. So you also had to do like tread water for 5 minutes and all this stuff, but you also had to do a 50-foot aerial ladder. So I did it, overcame it, scared the crap out of me. But if that's an irrational fear, okay, then I overcame it. Gosh, it jumps out the top of my head, Jake's downtown. Maybe going back to Virginia City. That was a vacation that we had to cancel last year. And Bannock Ghost Town. We are very much campers and hikers. My 20th year wedding anniversary was actually doing the beaten path with my husband and my son. The weather isn't conducive to it right now, but that would be my first thing, would be a backpack trip. So yeah, I don't know what off the top of my head.
Yeah, backpacking trip is great. That's a good answer.